Right. Am I getting this right? I think I have. It's always hard to know. Oh, good lord. We're live already. How did that happen? That was not intended. Okay. Alright. I'm hiding. Where is it, the little button? Whoops. Oh, I guess I can't disappear and then close it off. It'll just take too long. Okay. Alright. There's going to be a lot of wasted space at the very beginning. Shizzes. Okay. Oh, so be it. I do apologise. How's it going, Stephen? Hi, Aaron. Okay, all right, pull that out. I was not expecting that to happen. I honestly thought OBS drives me nuts. The number of times I try to set things up, get everything ready to go, make sure all the cameras sort of doing what it's supposed to be doing, and then it just starts for some reason and I'm not ready. Not ready. And yet it does it anyway. It's very annoying. But then again, live streaming, there are always going to be technical issues because it's a lot harder than pre-recording any kind of video. And so today's video, once we get to our actual start time, which is like a couple of minutes away, I just want to make sure I hit the start time before I officially start. But I'll let everybody know now, the normal thing. I've done my sound check. The sound seems to be coming through fine, which is always good news. I've made sure that everything is working correctly, which it is. How's it going, Stephen? But if you're rewatching this for the very first time and you're not part of the live stream, look down in the description. Down in the description there will be the start time so you can get past all of this babble. Okay? If you are not familiar with my live streams, I'm going to present everything to you first. Once I've presented my whatever I have to say, whether you find it useful or not, which is going to be about character relationships and their links. Once I've done that, I will respond to you in the chat, answer questions, respond to feedback. You can tell me what you think, whether you agree, disagree, all that sort of stuff. But usually I respond to everybody's feedback near the end and I just present everything as quickly as I can and then we're done. Okay? So I'm just going to give people time to jump into the room. And I was not intending to schedule this at the same time as AJ Pickett. But for some reason, AJ is running a live stream right now. I'm not sure why, but hey, it's cool. There's room for everybody, and obviously people can rewatch this stuff and his later on anyway. Okay, so we are ready to go. And I am going to just get back into OBS, you silly thing you are. Okay, and make sure we're ready to go. And there we go. Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and in particular we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons character relationship links. Very important. Gathering the party. Yeah, literally sometimes you don't want everybody to start in a tavern. It's just not enough. It's not a very strong opening. It's not a very strong character start, and obviously what you want is a really strong connection between the players' characters, so there's a good reason for them to be adventuring. And this video is primarily directed at players, but I also want dungeon masters to utilize this as a tool and throw it your players' way. So when you're doing your zero session, when you're building those characters all together, which is the smartest thing to do, is build all the characters together, get the player's handbook out, and make sure you're all on exactly the same page rather than on a different page and everybody sort of walks in. Last thing you want is everybody to have a lone wolf character or a character who's really designed to have their own adventure but not with anybody else. That's the last thing you want. So we're talking about character relationships and some of the options you can use in your game when you're building your character. Okay, so here we go. Agreeing on the same quest. That's actually a really good way to make sure your characters are linked. So when you are starting off your adventure, tell your players, find out from the Dungeon Master what is going to be the initial quest or mission that you're starting off with, so that you can all agree that you as characters, as the players who are running these characters, you are going to follow exactly the same quest. Now, you don't absolutely have to do this, but it is the simplest and easiest way to get things rolling, making sure everybody's on the same page. What about you've been friends for many years? You know, it doesn't matter how you became friends, but you've known each other for many years through a number of different reasons. And this is one of the best ways to link each other up together. And by far the next most important one, the one that I've found to be the most useful, is having family members as part of your adventuring group. It sounds strange, but honestly, you know, you adventure with your father or your mother or one of your siblings, your sister or your brother. I've done this in my own game. I've played a character who is has a brother in the party as well. And so when things get really, really sticky and dangerous, I don't go running off, particularly if my brother is in jeopardy. I am going to stay by his side to the bitter end. It makes for a good way to link each other up and make sure you're on the same page. Belonging to the same guild or faction, that's actually a really good way of linking characters as well. So the different factions like the Lords of Alliance, the Zentarum, the Zents basically, Order of the Gauntlet, the Emerald Enclave, the Harpers, all of those factions that have been brought out by Wizards of the Coast are a really good way of making sure that people are linked. It sounds like a very simple link, but it is still a link, and all you need to do is make sure you've got some sort of link going on, right? Otherwise, why are you adventuring together? That's the whole point. Forming some sort of blood pact to protect another creature till death. So in other words, you form a blood pact with one of the other players' characters, maybe because they saved your life, and you're going to stay with them to the bitter end. Now, one of the best examples of that is Star Wars and Chewbacca and Han Solo. That is one of the best examples of a blood pact that means they are connected and bonded indefinitely. What about you are the only two survivors of a former adventuring company or party? You know, you started out, you were very young, you weren't used to adventuring, and unfortunately you are the only two members left of the last party that really didn't even have a chance to do anything. You wound up walking into a horrible mess, and everybody died apart from the two of you. And because of that traumatic experience, you are now bonded and tied together, and you know, you rely on each other quite a lot. A really tricky one, but one you can still use, and that is former lovers. You were former lovers. Now this is one you need to be careful, who are now friends. Former lovers who are now friends, and you're adventuring together. Just be careful with this one. This is one that can unravel and also be a bit awkward and tricky. So you need to make sure that both parties are willing to go with this idea. Some discussion, you know, with all of this, you should be having a discussion with the other players at your table when you're doing this. What about a mentor and apprentice together? So one of you is quite experienced and the other is the apprentice, but both of you have not been out in the wider world. So maybe you're playing an older character and one of the other members is a lot younger. You need to be careful with this, that you don't wind up with one member downplaying the other. It's a really tricky one, this one, but you can still use it if you wanted to. Remember, an apprentice might be something like a squire, and the mentor might simply be a knight. So a good combination would be somebody playing a fighter or a paladin, and the other member is, say, a training towards that. That's certainly one way of looking at it. Or one of the members is your boss, and you are a hired hand, so you're working for them and they pay you a fee. Yet again, a very tricky combination, but still possible. One of the options that I thought was quite nice, and it's up to you whether you use it or not, and that is looking at something like the former prison cellmates. So you were locked up for some reason, and you developed a relationship in prison with this other person, and when you were finally released or escaped from your prison, you decided that you would go off and, you know, make your fortunes, or you are inducted into some sort of party or group or faction, and you are now working together. That is one way. So former cellmates. Maybe you were members of the same town militia that has now been, you've either left that town militia, or it's been mothballed for some reason, or maybe the town doesn't exist anymore, and so there's another way you can actually tie them all together. I think that's one of the more interesting ones myself, and I think, you know, when you're looking at the different ways you can connect each other, there are so many options available. Maybe you were members of a mercenary party, you know, paid to do a job, and now you've moved on from that mercenary party because you didn't want to sort of work simply for somebody else's coin, and now you're working together and you've gone off on your own, and you've found some likely individuals who have the same sort of goals and expectations in the world. What about the same guild? I was talking about the guild, but it could be the same thieves guild, it could be the same mage or wizard guild, anything like that. You join the same sort of guild and you adventure together because you're sick and tired of spending all of your time in the guild school or building, and you want to sort of see the world a bit more. A student who is adventuring with their beloved teacher. Yet again, this is the mentor-apprentice sort of concept. Yet again, you need to be very careful with it. The lord and serf is yet another example of utilizing that concept of will I take my teacher or my mentor or somebody who is at of a higher station with me, and the student travels with them. Veterans of a war, a hard-fought war. You survived that war, you fought together for many years, and now that it's all over, you've decided to go exploring. You've formed your own adventuring party. Bounty hunters and prisoner. Now this is a tricky one. You need to really be careful with it, but it's still an option. One of you is playing a bounty hunter and the other is their prisoner. And you might be a former prisoner. Maybe that bounty hunter decided that, look, in the end, I don't want to collect on the bounty for you. I'm going to let you go. And you now actually get along quite well. And the travel from A to B to cash in on that particular individual is meant that, you know, it was actually a relationship born of necessity, and you know, you learned about each other, and now you're no longer, so, I mean, you might still be a bounty hunter, but your colleague, your adventuring member, you don't want to cash in on that, and so of course you've got to watch their back, because the law is still looking for them, but you're going to cover them as best you can. I think that's actually quite a cool way to link characters and players together. Members of the same drifting crew of vagabonds. So maybe you're a bum, you know, you're a drunkard, and you both drink heavily, and you have decided, you know, you want to get off the streets, stop living on the streets, and now you're going to go adventuring together. But you were essentially part of the same vagabond group. You might all be part of the same vagabond group. It's totally up to you. Ex-members of a street gang. You might even still be members of the same gang. It's really totally up to you, but members of a street gang, that's a way of connecting each other. You might be former enemies that now work together because you've actually been able to see each other's good side and bad side, and you actually like each other enough that you still want to work together and explore the world, make your fortune, complete quests. Who knows? It's really completely up to you. This is going back to the family idea again, and that is members of an adopted family. You're members of the same adopted family. Maybe a rich, wealthy noble has adopted both of you, and that's how you know each other. And this family adopts quite a lot of different people, and you're part of that big family. Both former slaves, so you were captured, put to work in the slave mines, but you either paid off your debt and you're now free, or you both escaped and you are now sort of trying to stay clear of your master. your enslavers. Maybe you decided that we wanted to go into business together. We formed, this is one of the things that a lot of people have seen with Acquisitions Incorporated. They are business partners. Or maybe you're bound together by a sacred oath. You have spent a bit of time together, and there's something that you have the same drive, the same ideal, and that is what ties you together. So there's a sacred oath. This is good for clerics and paladins. Maybe you witnessed the same assassination or murder, and this is what ties you together, particularly for your first quest or mission. You each carry, now this is quite a commonly used tie-in, and that is you each carry half of exactly the same treasure map, and you are trying to put those pieces together, but you need each other because neither one will give up that treasure map. And this is going to be, you know, your tie-in. It's not a hugely strong tie-in. It can be a bit weak at times, because if the only reason to be together is that treasure map, once you've collected that treasure, then it's all over, and then, well, what happens after that? Well, we don't need to adventure with each other anymore, do we? Because we've already done all of that, and so just bear in mind, a weak hook, but still doable if you're careful. Maybe you both carry exactly the same curse. The Azure Bonds, a very old Dungeons and Dragons video game, had the entire party wake up and they all had the same tattoo or curse that tied them together. Maybe you will do the same thing in your own adventure. You trained in the same location together. You actually trained as a fighter or a mage or a wizard or a cleric in the same monastery, and now you've decided to leave that place and you are exploring the world together. Maybe you are blessed by the same church. Blessed by the same church is one of the ones that I think honestly is it's a very strong lead-in, it's a very strong connection, but you can do the opposite to that. If you're a warlock and you're not a cleric or a paladin, and you want a much darker and more sinister start, then maybe linking yourself by a dark ritual, that you've performed a dark ritual together, and this is what binds you together. It's a secret that both of you have to keep, and this is the thing that will tie you for the rest of your adventure or campaign. Another option, and not necessarily a wise one, but still one you can use, and that is something like you had a dream that the other member would save your life long before you met, and this is why you stayed with them. Or maybe you had a dream that you would save a particular individual, and so you feel like it was so real that you need to stay with them till that plays out. Not a very strong connection, but still one you can use.